All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you have had a good 5 days or so. Yesterday, put out some assignments on World War II. A lot of people got it done already, which is phenomenal. Watched the video, and they even took some of the quizzes, so that's excellent. You're going to find all your work in classwork now. I'm trying to categorize it. Some of you I called yesterday. It was so fun hearing from you, but I called because you're falling a little behind. So I was trying to catch you up. And I am going to, in that classwork area, I'm going to have codes for missing quizzes that you have missed. All the quizzes codes are just randomly generated by quizzes and they expire. And then sometimes they're randomly picked up by another class, by a teacher far, far away. And so, for example, yesterday I had a quiz that somebody was like, "Hey, Mr. Fuller, it says the code is expired." I said, "Yeah, they do expire. Try one of the ones that's posted on Classroom." And they used another really old code, and they said, "This quiz is in Spanish." And I said, "Okay, look," and I explained the process. So if you're missing a quizzes from like World War I or the Russian Revolution, or what else have we done? Imperialism. I think I already got those done for the most part. If you're missing one of those, I'm going to make a missing assignments topic in classwork, and you're going to find all those codes there. I'm going to post them. If you're already done with them, there is no need to redo them. However, if you're not done, that's where you will find them. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, send me an email. Been trying to respond to those pretty good, or show up to the class meeting today at 10 to 11:30. So with that, World War II, let's go. Since yesterday was May the 4th, no, yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. The day before that was May the 4th. I thought we could do a nice Star Wars intro to World War II, because in the past, the Star Wars, or if I play music, it gets taken off of YouTube, and also when I've tried to play YouTube from my computer, when I've played music from my computer, it hasn't actually showed up on the sound of the video that I've recorded. I've decided that while the music plays to the Star Wars intro, I will also be humming along with it. So here we go. Ignore that. Okay, here we go. You're reading while I'm humming. I wrote this. It's not about Star Wars. It's about World War II. Oh no! Here. There you go. That's actually World War II or Star Wars as a metaphor for World War II is actually a pretty good one, because you do have basically this evil empire, the German Empire, and you got the rebels and all sorts of stuff. And there's stormtroopers, and they're actually stormtroopers in World War II. And then at the very end, you have the Death Star, which, when you think about it, the Death Star could be, an ultimate weapon that could destroy a planet. Could be considered the atomic bombs of World War II. Now, ironically, the atomic bomb was developed and made by the United States, and it was dropped on Japan. But the reason the United States developed an atomic bomb is actually that we had heard that Germany was trying to develop their own super bomb. So it's basically a race between the United States and Germany to create the super bomb. And we were the ones who created the United States is the one who has created it. And we did not use it on Germany because by the time it was ready to be used, Germany had already surrendered. Thus, there was no need to use the bomb on Germany. Now, it is debatable. Did the United States need to use the atomic bomb on Japan? That's up for debate, and we'll get into that as we cover it. Now, I know part of that caption blacked out, so not everything recorded. So we better go over World War II basics today. We're going to try to do World War II by the end of this week, which is mission impossible. But basically today I'm going to summarize the entire war for you. So today we're going to do the whole war. Tomorrow we're going to do the beginning of the war. And then Friday we'll do the end of the war. So World War II in one side. It was the biggest war in history. Yep. Bigger, badder than World War I. Yeah, it's basically World War I Part 2. Some historians believe that in the future we will not have World War I and World War II. It'll just be called the Great Big Giant War because basically what it is it's a continuation of World War I. It's just there was like a 20-year break. So World War I ends on November 11th of the year 1918, and then World War II. You could debate when it starts because Japan invades China in 1937. However, the official start of World War II is when Germany invades Poland in September of 1939. So basically, World War II just takes a 20-year break from World War I, and we got it all over again. 60 million deaths in World War II. Huge amount. I mean, we can't really even fathom that number of people. Over half the deaths were civilian. Civilian being a non-military death. A lot of those from illness, but this is a war where civilians were specifically targeted as well. It went from 1939 to 1945. Again, China did get invaded by Japan in 1937. However, nobody really jumps into fighting mode at that time. They just kind of all looked at Japan and said, you shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, nobody wanted to fight a big giant war again, so they kind of just let it go. Yeah, we got our most infamous person of world history, Adolf Hitler. If you knew nothing about World War II, you probably knew who Hitler was. That's Hideki Tojo. He is the military leader of Japan. That's Emperor Hirohito. He is the emperor of Japan. The emperor was seen as basically the supreme ruler, but Hideki Tojo is kind of the one telling the emperor what to do and when. That's Benito Mussolini. He was the fascist dictator of Italy. These guys, these countries, Japan, Germany, and Italy, are going to unite and form what is called the Axis powers. This is where we get the term Axis and Allies. The Axis powers were Germany, ruled by Hitler. His nickname was Der Führer, which means the leader. Japan had Hideki Tojo, who was the military leader, and the Emperor Hirohito. He was basically seen as the living god. If the emperor said to do something, the people of Japan were going to do it. And then they had Benito Mussolini, and his name was Il Duce, which also meant the leader. Actually, Hitler was a dictator. However, he came to power democratically. He was elected. He did not get the majority of Germans to vote for him, but he was elected the same year as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, actually, in the United States. Some of you got that on the quizzes yesterday. He was elected democratically, but then just kind of like says, he throws the rule book out and says, look, I'm going to rule Germany the way I want to. The Allied powers, that's Neville Chamberlain. He was the leader of England before the war. He tries to keep peace, and he signs the Munich Pact with Hitler, which basically says, hey, Hitler is not going to fight a war, and England will let Germany be. He called it peace in our time. What it is known as, it was appeasing Hitler. He gives in the demands of a dictator in order to try to create peace, and eventually they have war anyway, and that's when this guy comes along. That's Winston Churchill. No, he is not giving the peace sign, and no, he is not the spokesperson for Verizon Wireless. He is actually, this for Winston Churchill meant victory. And he was willing to have victory against Germany at all costs. And he gives a very famous speech where he talks about, we'll fight them on the beaches, we'll fight them in the air, we'll fight them on the land, we'll fight them in the sea. And he basically goes and says, like, look, no matter what, we are going to fight Germany in this war. That is Charles de Gaulle. He was the leader of France during World War II. That's Joseph Stalin, the leader of Russia during, oh, wait, is it Russia or the Soviet Union? During World War II. After the Russian Revolution, Russia becomes the Soviet Union. So during this war, it was the Soviet Union, and that's Joseph Stalin, who's actually a pretty terrible person. But during this war, he was actually our ally. And there we have Harry Truman. Harry Truman was the president of the United States at the end of World War II. He is the one who gives the order to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But he was not the leader of the United States at the beginning of World War II. That was, no, never mind. It's not that either. That's Chiang Kai-shek. He's the leader of China. Oh, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There he is. I'm sorry, I missed him. There. Okay, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president of the United States for the majority of World War II. He was elected 4 times, which means he was president for how many years? 13. I know, it should be 16, except he died. He had polio. Because back then they didn't have a polio vaccine yet. It was created by Jonas Salk. Franklin Delano Roosevelt had polio, and he dies in his 4th term. Harry Truman takes over. He drops the bomb. There's Chiang Kai-shek. He's the leader of China. Those are the Allied powers. There were other countries too, but those are the big ones. Allied powers, there we go. Neville Chamberlain said, peace in our time. Winston Churchill said, we're going to fight them everywhere. Charles de Gaulle, leader of France. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, after Pearl Harbor, said, this is a day which will live in infamy. Harry Truman takes over when Roosevelt dies. Stalin was the leader of Soviet Union, and Chiang Kai-shek was the leader of China. Okay. Always this gets asked, so I'm going over it. How come Canada didn't fight in the war? They did, and so did most of the world. Here, look at this. Take a look at the Allied countries versus the Axis countries. And there are actually more countries in this than the FOD, but that's the majority. Now, this map is misleading because of all the land size. It makes it look like huge amounts of land. Everybody is siding against the Axis powers. But you have to remember, if I was at school, I would circle this area. Most of Brazil, this whole area here, not a whole lot of people living there because it is the rainforest. Most of Canada and Alaska, nobody's living in this area. Why not? Because it's super cold. And it's mostly polar bears. Most of Canada's population lives right on the border and like right here in Toronto. Most of the United States, in the middle part of the United States, is uninhabited. It is, or very sparsely populated. And most of the Soviet Union and China, people aren't living in these areas either because this is frozen tundra and China is very mountainous in this area. And Australia, the big part in the middle is called the outback. It's a big giant desert. There's not a whole lot of people living there either. So the map is a little bit misleading. Most of the countries sided against the Axis powers, but it's not like, well, looking at this map, you'd think that the Axis powers had no chance. Actually, for a lot of the war, it looked like the Axis powers might actually win. That's eventually what it looks like with all the countries that end up uniting against the Axis powers. So it's not just these countries that fight. It's a lot of countries that have to work hard to fight the Axis powers. Last slide. Results of World War II. Oh, there's Albert Einstein. Oh, there's people kissing. Oh, there's more people kissing. No, here. What does Einstein have to do with the war? First of all, Einstein was the one who kind of comes up with the idea for the atomic bomb. He says, look, there's a way you can make atoms collide and we could create a bomb of which the likes have never been seen before. And he was kind of tipped off that the Germans might be working on it, so that's what he's trying to do. I think that's Captain America's Winter Soldier. I think so. That's what that one's kind of all about. Red Skeleton might be in that movie. Anyway, then you got these guys. This guy and girl, they're kissing. This is a very famous picture. Actually, they didn't know each other. And this guy just like runs out of a bar and kisses this woman. And it's kind of like this like iconic, sweet picture, but in reality, it was kind of a strange thing that happened. It's in Times Square, New York. Germany surrenders on May 8th, 1945. That's in 2 days. A long time ago, but in 2 days. Japan surrenders on September 2nd, 1945. The war starts in 1939, so this is about a 6-year war. Japan and Germany are rebuilt by the Allies. There is a nuclear era with atomic bombs that begins. The Cold War begins after World War II. European colonies in Africa collapse after World War II. Israel, because of the displacement of the Jewish people, Israel is formed after World War II, and people kissed. And that leads to a different type of boom. Yeah, all you kids who keep saying, okay, boomer. The baby boom was like from like 1945 to like 1960. There's a baby boom. So those of you who okay would say like to Mr. Floyd, like, okay, boomer, you're actually wrong because I was not born between 1945 and 1960. Speaking of children being born. All right, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll talk more about this war. If you guys do have questions, please show up to the Google meeting, send me an email, communicate, and I'll do my best to answer them. Hope you guys are all doing well. Take care.